Hello beauties, welcome back to another YouTube video. As you see from the title of the video, today I'm going to be teaching you how to use a beauty blender. And I was actually thinking this other day when I actually started off using makeup, I actually did not start with a brush. I used to apply my foundation using either my hand, and then actually started off with my hand and then moved over to use a beauty sponge. And I actually think for beginners, using a beauty sponge to actually apply your foundation is a lot more easier than actually using a brush. And hence today we are going to be going into the details of how to use a beauty blender and how to actually prepare it. And there's just a lot of things that I thought in my mind they're kind of basic knowledge. For instance, when I do use a beauty blender, I am never using a beauty blender that is dry to apply foundation. My beauty blender is always damp. So on this video, I actually want to show you how to actually prepare your beauty blender before you actually use it, and how or what motions you actually use when you're actually using the beauty blender on your face. Okay, so let's get right into the video. So firstly, here's my beauty blender, and it is quite dry. Now, as I mentioned, that whenever you use a beauty blender, especially if you're going to be applying foundation with a beauty blender, again, if you are a beginner and you don't have no experience with makeup whatsoever, I'm going to suggest that you actually start off with using a beauty blender to apply your foundation, beauty blender to blend out your concealer, a beauty blender to basically blend your foundation, to blend your makeup look. I think it's just a whole lot easier than using a brush, and once you have some sort of experience, you can then move on to then using a brush. So as I mentioned, your beauty blender rather, needs to be damp. Now, the question is, what's the definition of damp? So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you how damp your beauty blender actually needs to be and how we actually prepare your beauty blender. So for the purpose of this video, you're going to need your beauty blender, as I mentioned, and I'm actually going to show you how to actually dampen your beauty blender. So what I normally do with my beauty blender is that I run it under rather cold water, and then I'd squeeze the excess water out. So I'm just going to quickly get my bowl and just show you how damp, or how I actually get it wet, and how we actually going to dry it and get it damp. Okay, so I am back with my bowl of water. I hope you can all see this, and I'm just going to dip my beauty blender. Don't think you guys can see this, but I'm just going to dip my beauty blender into the water. I normally use a running tap, so you'd obviously use a running tap. Then after immensely dipping your beauty blender into the water, we're just going to squeeze off all the excess water. So you're going to squeeze off all the excess water. And once we squeeze off the excess water, we aren't done as yet. So we're also going to take a paper towel. If you don't have a paper towel, you can just basically use a towel. And we're going to squeeze off any sort of extra excess water. So this paper towel obviously works as an absorber of the water from the beauty sponge or beauty blender, whatever you choose to call it, really. Okay, so I think we've done enough there. You'd also notice that the size of my beauty blender has actually grown. So normally with beauty blenders, you'd notice that once you put them into water, well, if it's a quality beauty blender, and you want to get a beauty blender that actually can do this and is soft, so that it gives you that sort of seamless blend when you're blending out your makeup. So it has, grown in size. So once you have dried your beauty blender, this now is then a definition of using a damp beauty blender. So you want to make sure that you dip it in water, squeeze out the excess water. Once you squeeze out the excess water, that you dry your beauty blender using your paper towel. If you don't dry it using a paper towel or using a towel, you are basically going to be blending your makeup with a wet beauty blender, and that's just, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our next step, which is I'm going to show you how to actually use the beauty blender on your face. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using my Maybelline New York Fit Me Matte Poreless Foundation. Now, if you're a beginner, right, I know I've seen a number of people putting on makeup as in putting dots all over. I'm going to say it depends on what type of foundation you're using. If you're going to be using a foundation that dries off quickly and you are a beginner in this makeup game, I'm not going to suggest that to you, because with the foundation that dries off quickly, you'd notice that while you're still working on the one side, the foundation on the other side is kind of drying up. People who are advanced in makeup and who are kind of used to, doing makeup on their faces can use that technique because they work quite fast. But if you are a beginner, I'm going to suggest to you to work in sections. When you apply your foundation, work and blend your foundation in sections, right? So what we're going to do firstly is that we're going to apply some foundation to the back of our palm. That is more than enough, because I'm just going to be doing one side of my face for the purpose of this video. Okay, so we're going to be applying foundation to the back of our hand. And again, if you're a beginner, I'm going to suggest for you to use this technique. Also, I should put out a disclaimer that because I'm showing you a technique to sort of apply your foundation using your beauty blender, there isn't really a right, or I'm not saying that the other techniques are necessarily, not correct and all of that. I'm just suggesting this as a beginner. I just think this is way easier. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to dip our beauty blender into our foundation like that. We're basically going to be picking up product using our beauty blender. So I'm just holding and picking up the product there. Okay, so let's start off with the one side. So as I mentioned, you're going to be starting off with sections. Notice the patting motion that I'm using. So when you're applying your foundation using a beauty blender, you want to use dabbing sort of motions. And you want to use dabbing sort of motions, and you'd notice that I'm not moving from one place here and skipping to there. I'm kind of like working and dabbing myself into the ends of my face. So like this. So you're dabbing it there. So if you want to move product to another part of your face, you do that using dabbing motions. So you just move it to the end parts of your face using dabbing motions. Again, you just pick up your product there onto your beauty sponge, and again, dabbing motions. Now again, notice that my dabbing motions are quite quick, if I can put it in that way. I'm not dabbing in the product while waiting in between my dabs. What I mean by this is that you'd notice that I'm dabbing it in. It's almost as if once my beauty sponge hits my face, it's going back again. So I'm not dabbing it like, So you want to be like fast in a sense. I don't know if I should say fast or what, but I guess you get what I'm saying. So you want to make sure that you're dabbing in this type of motion and that you are quick like that, that you're not doing this. Because once you do that, it's going to leave, as you can see, it's going to leave some sort of patches. So that's how you kind of blend out. Let me just finish this. That's how you kind of blend out your foundation using your beauty blender. Here. Another thing, you'd notice that I'm not swiping the makeup. I'm not swiping the makeup in this way. It's dabbing motions, right? So we don't swipe off the makeup. We only use dabbing motions to kind of blend out our foundation. Okay, so that's about it. If you want to sort of build up the the product and build up the foundation on your face, and you're trying to have a lot more coverage, you just basically pick up much more product from your hand and then dab it back into your skin. So here guys, that is how to use a beauty blender. I hope this video was useful, and I hope that you use that technique, which is basically going to help you to have a seamless sort of blend when you're blending out your foundation. Leave a comment down below, tell me what did you think of this video. Please do make sure that you give this video a massive thumbs up. Subscribe, it is absolutely for free of charge, and I'll see you on my next one.